The history of photographing toys is a long one, and often we as a community seem to forget this. While each of us may be innovating within our field, we are far from the first or farthest reaching of our kind. Photography came into being in 1800, with the first known surviving photograph being from about 1826, View from the Window at Gras. Paper and then celluloid film began being manufactured in the 1880s. In 1900, the Kodak Brownie camera was invented, giving the power of photography to the masses. From 1910 to the 1960s, fine art photography was restricted to documentary-like images that defined an actual thing or event. This changed in the early 1960s when artists began to break down the formality of photography and insert a narrative into their work. Fabricated photography, the opposite of documentary photography, in which the photographer creates what he or she photographs rather than finding it organically, was brought to the forefront of the medium in the 1970s. That said, while not heavily practiced until the 1970s, staged photography, the setting up of scenes to be photographed, dates back as far as the medium of photography does. In 1843, John Edwin Mayall made photo illustrations of the Lord's Prayer, and in the mid-1940s, David Octavius Hill and Robert Adamson posed and photographed scenes of the work of Sir Walter Scott. Within fabricated photography is tableau, portraiture, and still life. Tableau photography is a type of fabrication, taken from the idea of theater. A tableau is a still story or narrative. Within tableau photography is toy photography. In regards to toy photography, Elise Wright and Frances Griffiths, aged 16 and 9 at the time, used paper fairies as early as 1917 to create photographic works. These photos of cardboard fairies captured the public's attention as proof of the existence of fairy creatures, when Sir Arthur Conan Doyle used them to illustrate a story in 1920. The truth behind the photos, while it had been questioned, was not revealed until the early 1980s. And the renowned Edward Weston photographed Mexican toys in 1925. In 1933, the Illustrated London News said that these were the most extraordinary photographs ever taken of air flights in war. There were 50 images compiled in a book, Death in the Air, The War Diary and Photographs of a Flying Corps Pilot, a book which is still available for purchase today. These images, however, were of model planes and created by model maker Wesley David Archer. Examined and believed to be models by a CIA photo expert in the early 1950s, and then deemed as fake by Time Life Laboratory in 1979, these photos were not officially proven false until after Archer's death, when some of his belongings were given to the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum in 1984, over 50 years after their publication. In 1934, the most famous photo of the Loch Ness Monster was captured by Lieutenant Colonel Robert Kenneth Wilson. This photo, however, was actually of a 14-inch toy submarine with an attached serpent head. This was not revealed, however, for another 60 years, when one of the men involved confessed on his deathbed. While toy photography has existed since the 1920s, if not earlier, it came to the forefront of the field in the 1970s and 80s with the work of David Levinthal, Laurie Simmons, Arthur Tress, and Ellen Brooks. David Levinthal started working with miniatures in his photographic work while in graduate school in 1972. He first began working with Barbies, however his series he claims as officially leading him on the path to continue working with miniatures, and arguably some of his most recognized work, Hitler Moves East, was published in 1977. David Levinthal still currently works with miniature worlds to this day. Special effects created in front of the camera lens, a technique that may seem unique today in the world of post-processing, is something David Levinthal has been doing since the beginning of his work with miniatures. From fog and explosions in his Hitler Moves East series, to recording miniature scenes on videotape, then photographing the TV screen as it played back that tape for a noir-esque surveillance quality in his modern romance series. Laurie Simmons began working with miniatures in 1976 and still does today. Some of her most recognizable early works are her early color interiors, created from 1978 to 1979, which serve as a commentary on domestic life. The technique of using a photographic image as a backdrop for a miniature set may seem revolutionary today, but Laurie Simmons was using this technique in the early 1980s within her tourism series. Arthur Tress began working with miniatures in the 1980s with the Teapot Opera. This series consists of skillful conglomerations of toys and cutouts posed in a Victorian child's stage. Ellen Brooks photographed dolls from 1978 to 1985 as a way of critiquing female and male role models. And those are toy photography's roots. Did you know they went so deep? Thank you so much for watching. Hope you have a great day, and I will see you next time.